Following an accident involving a Boeing 737-9 with Alaska Airlines, the Federal Aviation Administration revealed yesterday that it will be watching the American plane maker more closely. This will include studying how Boeing produces planes daily to identify potential flaws as the regulator tries to better understand how the plane maker continues to see quality escapes. When it was revealed that a 737-9, again this is part of the MAX series, had a door blowout, many people blamed the MAX family. It was an easy target given everything that has happened. It has also been the most in the spotlight aircraft, I'd argue, in the past decade. However, after the early stages of an investigation, and much more came to light, the focus shifted away from the MAX and more towards Boeing and critical production practices that are undertaken on a daily basis. The FAA recently announced they would investigate Boeing as part of the ongoing 737-9 accident, but didn't really reveal much more. But now we know they are going to be observing. While there have been quality assurance difficulties before, loose bolts on the 737-9 have, according to the FAA, helped identify other manufacturing problems that are providing an inadequate final product to customers. Identification of other manufacturing problems is something new that they've revealed in the past 24 hours or so. As part of the ongoing investigation into Boeing, the FAA is attempting to identify if the plane maker is, essentially speaking, delivering aircraft that are not up to the highest standard that they should be. The 737-9 will also see a new audit launched by the regulator. Following this audit, the regulator says it will not be afraid to extend the focus to critical suppliers who make parts for the aircraft. However, moving ahead and focusing on the suppliers will only take place depending on the results from the initial investigation. While a lot of the general public will look at Boeing or the MAX, suppliers do also play a big role in the entire conundrum we're seeing. Is this entire thing more serious than thought? When an Alaska Airlines 737-9 lost a door, many people assumed it was isolated. While Alaska Airlines, yes, grounded their aircraft for precautionary reasons, and the FAA issued an EAD, there was never really any assurance that something else would come back. Could very well be a door just blowing out. However, during preliminary inspections conducted by technicians at United Airlines and Alaska Airlines, they would identify loose bolts on several 737-9 aircraft that had been parked. Almost immediately, this saw alarm bells ring as people began to question how widespread of an issue this was and whether, had these planes not been pulled from service, an accident would have been far more catastrophic. Some would say it's pure speculation that an incident could have been more catastrophic. Pilots and cabin crew, yes, aboard the aircraft successfully landed the plane back into Portland, with only minor injuries to some on board who were later cleared by medical officers. However, analysts warned that luck was actually on the side of those aboard, with the incident occurring only shortly after departure. As a result, the aircraft never reached its maximum altitude. Had it reached maximum altitude and this had taken place, the results could have been far more different per investigators. The 737-9s, again to reiterate, do remain grounded as the FAA takes time to review the situation. In the past day, United Airlines extended their grounding of the 737-9 further towards the midway point of next week. This is a tentative schedule change. It doesn't mean this is when the aircraft will return, as they had initially said that flight cancellations related to the Dash 9 grounding would stop this weekend, but then extended it onwards. The FAA has really made it clear from the offing that they won't return the plane to service if they don't believe it's safe, and there's no timeline for that. They believe that speed solves absolutely nothing. So, quality issues at Boeing. For years, the plane maker has faced quality assurance difficulties across several of its leading aircraft programs. However, one of the biggest focuses under new management was to improve this. However, now the FAA's administrator said that whatever the plane maker has been doing to try and rectify the quality assurance issues hasn't worked. It's a pretty blunt answer that really you couldn't argue with, as things continue to slip through checks like loose bolts. The regulator says pretty firmly they believe that the entire accident, and again, accident is how the NTSB is labeling it, is a manufacturing issue. issue, which is a very important realization made, and thus it does mean that it is something that could have been prevented. What it also means is that while the 737 MAX is the center of attention, a manufacturing issue could happen to absolutely anything. A manufacturing issue could impact a door at Boeing HQ falling off and hitting someone in the arm. That's what I mean when I say that. Yes, the 737-9 was the focal point for it, and maybe to a certain extent for Boeing, while I am certainly not saying it would have changed anything. The fact it had to happen on a MAX probably wasn't the most ideal set of circumstances, although none of it truly was. The agency wants to be convinced such a blowout with the MAX, or for that matter, any aircraft produced by the American plane maker, does not happen again. As a result, it has said it will be watching and studying exactly how Boeing makes planes, to get to the bottom of how so many things continue to slip through. Hundreds of thousands of components are installed on each aircraft unit, so as a result, it just wouldn't be practical to tear down an entire plane to find potential other issues. Unfortunately, it is not something that really works. As say the 3 planes you check don't have the same problem, but then the 7 that you didn't do. It is a little bit difficult, so the FAA believes that if it actually inspects how Boeing produces aircraft, it will be able to better understand where the problems lie. Now, onlookers feel a little bit skeptical about this. They've noted that if the FAA is studying production practices with Boeing's knowledge, it becomes a little bit easier for those working on the plane to increase their levels of focus and then maybe have them drop back off. No doubt the FAA will be aware of this and we'll see how they go about these inspections, but just think of it as your boss watching you do your work and then not. Now, of course, I'm not inferring that maybe you don't work as hard, but obviously the element of someone looking over you is going to change how you perform your tasks. During the global pandemic, we know also companies within the industry were forced to cut their workforce significantly, and at Boeing, a substantial amount of experienced workers were shipped off. Those who previously worked for the company detailed the change in culture across the past decade, and the lack of experience, as demand has surged back, has certainly come back to bite the plane maker. Others would argue that the McDonnell-Douglas merger in the 1990s resulted in a significant culture shift that then continued onwards to the 2000s, when the plane maker would truly be chasing profits rather than building a safe and reliable aircraft. There is a lot of anger, obviously, around what has taken place, but it doesn't take long just sifting through YouTube comments here on the channel to also see that people have varying opinions on when the change of culture occurred. But what is more than evident is that there was one, and it wasn't for the better. So in summary, Boeing is saying it will cooperate with the Federal Aviation Administration. We now know the FAA will be closely inspecting how Boeing produces its aircraft. They believe that the accident was a manufacturing flaw, so therefore they need to understand how on earth this happens. We have no timeline still on the 737-9 groundings. They will continue for as long as the investigation takes place and as long as the FAA believes that the planes are unsafe. And looking ahead, we're just going to continue to keep getting updates about this situation, which seemed like it started with, yes, a pretty big story, but every day following there's been another development which hasn't exactly looked good on the American plane maker. If you have any thoughts, let me know down below in the comments. Thank you very much for your support here on the channel. It really does mean a lot to me. Please take care. Do also be safe. I know I don't say it much, but subscribe to the channel as well if you would like to see more content like this in your subscription boxes. Thanks again. I'll see you next time.